One story has been stuck in my head after reading Chasing the Scream by Johann Hari. Probably you may believe that the war on drugs was introduced in recent years by the United States administration. But it has a long and old story. It is believed that it started with this man Hari Anslinger, a federal agent who was working in the Department of Prohibition and then was positioned to lead the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. It is odd to think that back in those days, hard drugs were available in the pharmacy. Cough syrup contained opioids. One of the main ingredients of Coca-Cola was coca leaf, where we get cocaine from, and marijuana was legal all over the US. Hari vowed to eradicate all drugs from the face of the earth. He did not have compassion for drug users. In December of 1914, the Harrison Narcotic Act was approved by the United States Congress. It was a law created to regulate it, tax the production, distribution and importation of opiates and coca products. But there was a loophole on the act saying that doctors and dentists could provide drugs to patients. Dr. Edward Williams decided to act on it, opening a free clinic for addicts in LA. But Hari and his department did not care about the fact the Supreme Court was in favor of respecting the chance that doctors had to prescribe such drugs. So in 1915, around 20,000 doctors were charged for violating the Harrison Act. Some of them had to pay large sum of fines and others were arrested, including Dr. Edward Williams. After seeing the Bureau's behavior toward doctors, and especially his brother, Dr. Henry Smith Williams decided to act against Hari Anslinger and find the real reason of the so-called war on drugs. He wrote the book Drug Addicts Are Human Beings, where he laid out evidence that the entire policy of drug prohibition was a big scheme. One of Anslinger's chiefs appointed for California was later proved in court that he was getting money from the Chinese mafia in San Francisco. Dr. Henry Smith Williams wonders in his book if this war launched by the police was an operation to help the mafia to shut down the clinics that helped addicts so they could control the distribution of all the drugs. My understanding on the war on drugs is that all over the world, each country had their own issues with drug addicts, but it turns out that Hari Anslinger traveled to the United Nations to spread the word of his work in his own country. He wanted to persuade all the countries to wage war on drugs. He had these narrative that the communist countries were infecting the United States with their drugs to weaken white man. He did not have any evidence whatsoever for this conclusion. Many countries refused his orders, but he threatened them with economic sanctions and kept trade agreements as hostages if the rest of the world didn't follow through. He spread fear all over the place. He thought eradicating the most complex problems in the world could be solved. He convinced senators, presidents, with not actual facts, not listening to doctors who were treating addicts. In 1950, Hari found out that a person he admired was a heroin user. He confronted that man. The man responded, "I wouldn't try to do anything about it, Commissioner. It will be the worse for you." That man turned out to be Joseph McCarthy, a United States Senator. Hari didn't care that a low-level class citizen, in his view, would go to see a gangster to get their supply. But when he was in front of a person he respected, he turned into a supplier himself for McCarthy. Hari assured to the senator that he will have his product available from a reliable source. Hari Anslinger became a drug user himself. He was getting morphine treatments after getting sick at the end of his life. He laid out the path for the entire world in this war to follow. He created, shaped and dictated some of the policies most of the countries followed during the harshest years this world has seen, fighting what it seems an endless conflict. Some countries have suffered more than others. After 100 years when this war was launched, there has been a noticeable shift in how drugs are perceived in our current society. Doctors all over the world have done remarkable work in underlying the root cause of addiction, and organizations are pushing for drug decriminalization. But there is more work to be done, obviously. Nowadays there is an open conversation for the use of hard drugs to treat depression, PTSD and addiction, but certainly for most of the countries those days when this war started are long gone.